Hello, my name is Chris, and I want to thank you for joining us for this TenantCloud podcast. This podcast is part of a series. If you haven't listened to the past few episodes, as a part of this series is specifically geared towards how to find a tenant quickly for your rental property. So if you have one rental property or 100, it doesn't matter. The strategies that we're discussing in this series are going to help you find tenants quicker and more efficiently in the future to make sure that your vacant rentals have as little downtime as possible. In fact, there's a strategy that I'm going to discuss at the end of this series, which is going to cover strategy that I've used successfully over the years to literally have a tenant move in within a day or two after the current tenant moves out. It's entirely possible, even in a highly competitive rental market, and I walk you through the strategy of how to do that. So stay tuned through the end of this series. It's going to be a pretty long series, I will say. We're going to be covering about 20 or more different strategies and things that you can do to find a tenant quicker. And this is the third episode of the series. And so we're just going to keep rolling with it. And hopefully the information that you glean from these podcasts will help you to become a better rental manager and a better rental marketer for your rental property. So without further ado, we're going to jump into today's topic, which is working with an agent. And that means working with a real estate agent, or otherwise known as an apartment locator or rental locator. Now, if you have used a rental locator in your market, that is awesome. We're going to cover a couple of strategies in here that you may not have ever heard of or used before. But definitely stay tuned as we jump in here. We try to get through these podcast episodes in under 10 or 15 minutes at most. Sometimes I'm successful at doing that and other times not so much. But again, hopefully the information that you get from it is worth the 10 or 15 minutes that you spend listening to it. So thanks for joining us. We're going to jump right in. So over the years, I've used rental locators in various capacities. In some cities, I've used them more than others. For instance, in Houston, I rarely ever used a rental locator. It was probably just due to the fact that my property was located in an area where it was already pretty high in demand at the time, and so there wasn't a very competitive market. I do think that that's actually changed for that rental property now, and it's quite a bit more competitive. There's a lot more rental properties in that area and in that neighborhood now, and so it's a lot more difficult for the leasing marketing side of things. And so I believe they actually use quite a few locators these days. But I do think that there is a time to use locators even in a market like that. And I think that it can actually reduce the amount of time that you have vacant rentals even more than what it might be already. But in, for instance, Austin, Texas, we use locators consistently. In fact, to this day, apartment locators in Austin are very common, very popular, and that's crazy because it's actually a really hot real estate market and has been for well over a decade now. And in fact, some of the rental properties that I would manage, we would offer as much as 150% commission, believe it or not. And when I say 150% commission, I'll step back here for a second. The commissions for real estate agents, the way that it works, let's discuss that real quick. The way that it works with real estate locators is you put a rental property out there that you say, hey, I have this rental coming up, or it's already vacant, it's available for a move-in date of this date, and you put it out there either on the MLS, which might be your local MLS. If you've never heard of the MLS, it might be worth getting with your broker. Depending on the state that you're on, you probably are required to work with a broker by law if you're managing rental properties. If not, get with a broker who has access, or a real estate agent who has access to the MLS to get your rental listings on an MLS listing system. Even if you're on every other listing system under the sun, the MLS is a completely different beast. It is basically where all licensed real estate agents can go onto an MLS and they can see rental listing properties that may not be listed anywhere on like apartments.com or any of that stuff. And that's where most real estate agents are going to be going to look for information for rentals to begin with. And there's information they can access on there that cannot be accessed otherwise on a platform that's not intended for licensed real estate agents. And so if you don't have a way to get on there now, I would recommend finding a way to get onto an MLS, and that is through brokers and real estate agents. So what happens is you put a rental out there, and for instance, on the MLS, you would put in the MLS, hey, we're paying 50% commission on this rental for anybody that you physically bring in to tour. Or maybe it is a 25% commission if you just send somebody to me. And let me explain what that means. When you put out the rental listing onto the MLS, you would basically what you're saying is, if you physically bring somebody to my rental property, you tour them as the tourer, as the agent, and you close them on the deal, either in my office or afterwards or whatever, but you close the deal with your client to rent at my rental property, I will pay you 50% commission. What that means is you will pay them 50% of whatever the monthly rent is. So when that tenant moves in and they pay that first month's of rent, so let's say it's a $1,500 rent, or so let's just say $1,500 rent, they pay $1,500, they move in on the first on their scheduled move-in date, and you've collected the funds, you would then pay the real estate locator $750 for bringing that tenant to you. Now, that may seem like a lot in some markets. You may have sticker shock hearing that, but in a lot of markets, believe it or not, that's very common. In fact, like I said, in the Austin market, which is a hot real estate market, we were at one point paying as high as 150% of the rental commission, meaning we were paying more than the monthly rent. And so depending on how badly you need tenants and how difficult of a time you are having finding tenants, or maybe you just want to find tenants quicker, the MLS is a great way to do it. And it might not be 50%. In your market, the standard commission might be 10%, it might be 15%, 20%, whatever it is. But the bottom line is you're basically paying somebody to physically bring somebody to your property. They do all the work for you. They close the applicant, and they bring you qualified people that they are likely already pre-vetting and pre-qualifying for your rental property, because they don't want to waste their time and money and gas and wear and tear on their car driving somebody to rental properties if they haven't pre-qualified them, and they're not going to qualify for your rental to begin with. So that's something to keep in mind when dealing with an agent, with a real estate agent. The second thing is you could put it on there and say, well, even if you can't bring them to me, as long as you send qualified tenants to me, I'll pay you half of 50%. I'll pay you 25%. And so what that would be is if the locator, instead of them bringing the person to you and doing all of the work, they basically are just acting as a referral agent. They're sending pre-qualified or potentially pre-qualified people to you to go and tour your rental, that if they do qualify and they do move into your rental property, and they might not collect 50%, but they'll collect half of that at 25%, or maybe it's just 10%, whatever it is. But again, you're getting people out there doing the marketing for you. It's essentially like hiring a contract worker to do work for you to get people into your rental property. And so you're basically putting more boots on the ground for your rental property in a sense. So those are a couple different ways that you can do it. Now, keep in mind that if the going commission rate in your market is, let's say, 20%, if you want to find somebody quicker for your rental property, then put on there that you're going to pay 30% or 40% or whatever it is. Double the commission of whatever the going commission rate in your area is. You're going to get a lot of applicants very quickly, because agents are going to be sending you potential tenants left and right, because you were the highest paying commission in the market. And people don't work for free, especially real estate agents. And especially if it's just something they're kind of doing on the side on top of doing house sales and anything else that they're involved in the real estate industry. A lot of real estate agents just do locating on the side, or maybe it's just they help people, recurring clients of theirs. Maybe it's somebody who they sold a house and they need to find them a rental real quick because their house sold quicker than they thought it was and they haven't found a new property, so they need a short-term rental or whatever it might be. Real estate agents are a great resource to help you find tenants quicker. And they can help you find qualified tenants a lot quicker as well. So keep that in mind. And there are actual apartment locator companies in most cities as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just a traditional real estate agent, because not all real estate agents deal with apartment locating. But you could even just go through a traditional apartment locating company. Now, here's another strategy that you can use to get your rental property listed, or to get it rented quickly and find a tenant quickly. And that is, even if you do list on the MLS, or let's say you don't list on the MLS, what you can still do is you can send out an email blast or a text blast if you have their numbers, or even go old school and do a fax blast out to all of the apartment locating companies within however many miles or whatever the region is where your rental property is located, and make sure that every single agent in your area, every single apartment locator in your area, at every single apartment locating company in your area knows that you have a rental property available and what you are paying for commissions for that rental property. And make sure that it's got a picture of it or multiple pictures. Make sure maybe it's just got a link to the rental listing, whatever it is. Strategize and make sure that you're providing those agents with the resources that they need, so that if they do have potentially qualified applicants who are looking for a rental in your area, they know where to go to show them your property and to get them in the door as quickly as possible and close them on your rental. So again, hopefully some of those things were helpful to you. There are a few more things that you can do when it comes to real estate agents. One is you can put a real estate lockbox on the door if it's a vacant rental. And you can actually have it so that they can just go there and tour with them without even you needing to even be there. So if you are paying 50 or 100% on a rental commission and you want them to do all the work, because I mean, they're getting paid for it, right? So you could put a lockbox on the door so that, and then put it in the MLS listing, because it's a secure listing where only licensed real estate agents have access to that information. So you can put the MLS lockbox code on there, whatever it is, and they can go tour it. And there are some other strategies that we'll discuss in additional parts of this series as we go on, but we've already gone on long enough. We're about 12 minutes into this podcast, so we're going to cut it off here. Make sure to tune in for the next episode. We're going to talk about flexibility, which is going to kind of tie into what we just discussed. So make sure that you tune in to the next podcast episode. As always, thank you for joining, and leave us a review if you are listening to us on Apple or Google Podcasts. We love to get your feedback, and follow this podcast wherever you're listening to it, and I'll look forward to talking to you next time.